What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome to the hype video for the Philadelphia Eagles' upcoming matchup against the Oakland Raiders on Christmas Day. What a way to spend the holidays. I hope all you guys are having a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, and everything in between. But it's time to talk about some Eagles football, and this is a very, very big game for the Philadelphia Eagles for a reason I will talk about as we look through the top 10 things you need to keep an eye on for this Philadelphia Eagles versus Oakland Raiders game, be it matchups, be it keys to victory, be it things I want to see, and everything else in between. Lots of things in between here. So without further ado, jumping right in to point number 10 is that if the Minnesota Vikings lose on Sunday, which they probably won't, they're playing the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's not... You know, Brett Hundley has looked serviceable. He's looked better the more starts he's got. But let's be honest, I would probably put the Vikings losing that game, especially because they are still very well playing for home field advantage. I'd probably say that it's like a 70-30 that the Vikings are going to win that game. I think the only reason why you say they might not win is because, you know, any game that Case Keenum is their starting quarterback, even though I think he's getting slept on, even though I think a lot of people are going against him, I'm kind of going to fall in that mold because I still feel with Case Keenum at quarterback, he is still susceptible to having a bad game. But I would still bet that the Vikings are going to win. But that being said, that's good for the Eagle fans because personally, I want to see our starters play. If the Vikings lose, Doug Pearson's already kind of came out saying he'll probably only play our starters for like a half or something like that. And I don't really want that to be the case, especially after three, especially on the defensive side, very lackluster performances. I want these starters playing. I don't want this rusty-ass team being what we get in the playoffs. So, and even if they do, let's go on this point here, hypothetical. If the Vikings do lose, what do you do with Nick Foles? Like, you want Nick Foles to get reps, but then he's also your starting quarterback, and he threw up 4 touchdowns against the Giants. I mean, the Raiders secondary is as banged up, as bad as the Giants, so I fully expect Nick Foles to have a good game if he does play. But if we have everything locked up, is there a point of playing Nick Foles? Usually I would say no, but because he really does need in-game reps so that he is fine come playoffs, it's a tough situation, especially our offensive line is banged up. You got to go up against Khalil Mack. If they rotate him around and put him on Big V, that can be a big-time problem for the health of our quarterback. It's a very tricky scenario. So I guess, you know, everyone watch on Christmas Eve. We could have a very happy Christmas Eve if the Minnesota Vikings do lose. But just keep an eye on that. Going to point number 9 is the Raiders' offensive line is banged up. I think Donald Penn's out for the season. He's a really solid left tackle. And Marshawn Lynch is really the type of running back that struggles against the Eagles. The running backs that do good against Philly are the Alvin Kamara, Chris Thompson, receiving backs, scat backs, high agility type backs. Power backs that just run straight up the middle, they usually struggle against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I fully accept us to eliminate the run game, which would make the Raiders' offense one-dimensional. And, you know, that is always a good thing. Anytime you can make a team one-dimensional. So it's a point worth mentioning because everyone, you know, this was the year that beast mode, Marshawn Lynch was going to, you know, be the one key player that takes the Raiders over that next level and makes him a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And he hasn't looked anything special. He looked like how I said he was going to look all season long. I thought it was awesome that he was coming back, but there was super stupid high expectations for Marshawn Lynch. And, you know, all you had to do was look at Marshawn Lynch's last little year, half year, whatever it was in Seattle. You could tell he was starting to slow down a little bit. And, you know, he pretty much put up a season that I expected he would. What's he have, like 5-6 touchdowns, 400-500 yards, something like that. That's not terrible, but it's definitely not great. And Philly is going to stop him, and we're going to eat his lunch. We're going to eat his Skittles. Point number 8 is, however, a positive to the Raiders, is Derek Carr is a good enough quarterback to implement the Giants' game plan of quick throws if that's what they want to do. If the Oakland Raiders, you know, they don't have a whole lot of play for right now, they just want to make things difficult, they may just want to switch it up and run what the Giants tried to run against the Eagles. Just have Crabtree, Amari Cooper if they're both playing, Jared Cook. Just run slants the whole time. Philadelphia not only couldn't stop it, but it looked like Jim Schwartz didn't even try to adjust to stop the slants. It was just, oh, it was frustrating. That game against, that win, we'll have to mention it was a win. It wasn't just a game. It was a win against the Giants. It was so incredibly frustrating to watch because it was like you're playing like a 6-year-old on Madden that just knows, oh, I'm going to keep running slants, keeps working. We're going to use it till you stop it. It's like, well, on one side, I mean, oh, come on. But on the other side, why not? If it's working, why, you know, put the onus on Jim Schwartz and his Eagles defense to make the adjustments to stop it. And I think the Raiders, with nothing to play, if they really want to try to attack us that way, Derek Carr is a good enough quarterback that he could execute that game plan. So watch out for that. Number 7 is Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. If they both play, we'll feast on our corners if they play like they have the last 3 weeks. Our secondary for the first you know, what is it? I'd say first 8 weeks for sure. Look legitimate. These were guys that were playing way above their pay grade. Jalen Mills was having his best year. Patrick Robinson was #1 corner for Pro Football Focus. Anytime that Rasul Douglas came in, he looked pretty good. Darby was having good games. Now, this last 3 weeks, our secondary has been absolute shambles. Safeties included. Rodney McLeod has not looked good. Malcolm Jenkins has looked horrible, to be quite frank. And Crabtree and Cooper are talented enough that if they both play and then get on a hot streak, they are going to embarrass our secondary. So that is something that you just know that the Raiders, oh yeah, they're out of it, and this and that and this and that. If they want to, they have the recipe from a passing attack standpoint to make the Eagles defense look ugly once again. Now, I know Amari Cooper has some troubles with drops. He's kind of looked like Nelson Aguilar this year. But, you know, we all saw, what was it? I can't remember who they played. The Chargers or something like that, where Cooper had like 200-some yards. It was absolutely insane. So, or it might have been the Chiefs. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, be very aware of Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. Go to point number 6. I just wrote down Malcolm Jenkins just because this is a little tidbit I want to talk about. He made the Pro Bowl, which is ridiculous. Malcolm Jenkins has had his worst year with the Philadelphia Eagles by far. I literally can't recall a strong game Malcolm Jenkins has had this whole season. All I can think about Malcolm Jenkins is just missed tackles, whiffs, drops in coverage, dropped interceptions. Like, everything that could go bad for Malcolm Jenkins has gone wrong this year. And this is just my official notion to say that I have him as my surprise cut this offseason. When I look at the salary cap, I think someone in the chat, I should have probably verified it, said we free up basically $5 million of cap if we let Malcolm Jenkins leave. I would consider that. I'm not going to say you outright cut him because he has been, debatably, before this year, maybe our most consistent defender. Maybe it's just a down year. But I kind of start seeing all the off-the-field stuff where, you know, he's a big social justice type player. Man, he has one foot out, man. It seems to me like Malcolm Jenkins is already thinking about his job off the field, and it's kind of reflected in his play on the field. And I'm not saying you outright cut him again. Like I said, I respect everything Malcolm Jenkins has done. But it's something that you need, I think, that should be considered, and all us Philadelphia Eagle fans should be aware that, you know, his play has not been great, and he's a pretty expensive safety. And when you look at our secondary, once they get back to full health, ideally you have Ronald Darby at one side, you have Sidney Jones at the other, you have Rasul Douglas working in, and you can move Jalen Mills back to safety, where I would say he's more natural at safety, have Jalen Mills and Rodney McLeod as our two safeties. But yeah, man, Malcolm Jenkins, that's a weird one that he made the Pro Bowl. Over Camus? Camus Grugier-Hale should have. I think he's an alternate. I think Camus, Jason Kelsey are all Pro Bowl alternates. I think Brandon Graham might be as well. But Camus is the biggest snub from the Pro Bowl. Number 5 is Khalil Mack versus Lane Johnson. This is just an excellent battle. I mean, if the Raiders are smart, they might try to like flip the field and have Khalil Mack play on the opposite side because he's going up against Big V, and that way we'll just rip RIP our quarterback. But if he stays on his natural side, it's going to be Khalil Mack versus Lane Johnson. We get to see debatably the best edge rusher in football going up against debatably the best tackle in football. I definitely think right now that Lane Johnson is the best #1 tackle, left or right, in the NFL this season based off of his play. And Khalil Mack is an absolute freaking nature. So that is just something, a mismatch, a battle I want to see. A mismatch, maybe I want to see what happens. Because we also what happened when Lane Johnson went up against Von Miller. There was a damn meme because Lane Johnson threw Von Miller to the side like 6 yards. So maybe, you know, we have another meme, potentially. Who knows? Number 4 is that there's going to be more chemistry with Nick Foles and his wide receivers. Hopefully. You still saw, even though we had 4 touchdowns against the Giants, there were still a couple missed throws, a couple high throws, a couple throws that really looked like they still weren't exactly on the same page. So, assuming that he does play, it's going to be really nice to see what kind of progression Nick Foles makes with his starting wide receivers. Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz, Torrey Smith, guys like that. I mean, you know, this is kind of goes back to that other point, is that even if the Vikings lose, do you really want Nick Foles to lose those reps, those meaningful reps with those starters? It's a really, really tough situation, and it's probably as tough a situation as a team that might have and be able to secure a first-round bye and home field advantage, which we get the home field advantage if the Vikings lose, to have. I mean, how many times would you say, oh yeah, look, we won home field advantage, we didn't even have to win? And it's like, all right, so let's rest everyone. And Carson Wentz was playing, all right, let's rest everyone. Now you have this weird predicament where it's like, oh, do we rest them, or, you know, is that really gonna, you know, kind of like backfire us at some point? Because we still have to get this chemistry going. We still need to get Nick Foles his reps. So if Foles does play, I'm very excited to see a lot more chemistry, a lot more cohesion from that unit. Going to point number 3 is that if there is no Nick Foles, there is rumors that Nate Sudfeld, who is our backup, has been turning heads at practice. That was the exact words of our offensive coordinator, Frank Reich. if that is the case, no Foles, that means you're probably not rolling with a lot of stars. So let's see the Sudfeld to Mack Hollins connection. Mack Hollins is a wide receiver I want to see get a lot more reps because I do believe he will take over for Torrey Smith. And next year, our starting wide receivers will be Shawn on one side, Mack Hollins on the other, and Nelson Aguilar in the slot. That is my best guess, unless Philly goes out and lands like a stud in the draft at wide receiver, which I don't think they would, unless a diamond in the rough is in there in round 4 or something like that. So I want to see Sudfeld and Hollins if there is no Nick Foles. There's diehards, only real diehards want to see what we have in a backup. But still, it is something to keep an eye on if it comes out because our offensive coordinator is very high on our backup QB. And let's be honest, Mack Hollins is amazing. Going to point number 2 is that if we win this game, the playoffs goes through Philadelphia if we can win some playoff games. If we play better defense, it's going to be 2 wins, and then we're in the Super Bowl. And both those games are at Philadelphia. Philadelphia has played better at home this year. I've said countless, I think probably 2 or 3 times in my pregame hype videos that the Lincoln Financial Field needs to become more of a distinct home field advantage around the league. We need teams that when they come in, they're like, oh, no, we have to go into Philly. And I felt like, really, since I've been a fan that hasn't had a reputation, like since the vet, there hasn't been a reputation that Philadelphia is a tough place to go play. Not the same as Kansas City, Green Bay, Seattle. But this year's really been the case. We have been a lot better at home than we have been away. And if we can get home field, man, playoffs through Philly with our defense, if they get hot, and the way Nick Foles can control this offense and limit the turnovers, we're going to be a problem, man, an absolute problem. So home field is key. 1 win, we'll do it. And number 1, Nick Foles, 7 touchdowns confirmed. When Nick Foles threw his 7 touchdowns in 2013, it was against the Raiders, so we are returning to the scene of the crime. Will Nick Foles be able to put up 7 touchdowns? I highly doubt that. I feel like this would be a game that if Nick Foles gets, what do you have? He had 3 touchdowns at half against the Giants, I believe. So I really do feel that if the game's getting slightly out of hand like that, again, they'll pull him and play Sudfeld in the second half. But, I mean, it is, you never know. What if it turns into a shootout? What if the defense, plays like they did against the Giants, and this turns into a game that, first team to 40 wins almost. So there is a chance. Like Nick Foles against the Giants, you could tell that Philadelphia in the second half, even though the game was really, really close, they started to try to run the ball more, started to get away from what was making the offense so successful in the first half because it was all about killing the clock off. I really believe that if you let Nick Foles continue to throw it out like he was in the first half against the Giants, Nick Foles probably would have had 5 or 6 touchdowns. It was ridiculous. So I think there's complete chance, a slim chance, because I hope to God our defense is playing better, but a slim chance that Nick Foles might attempt to tie or break his 7 touchdown performance against the Oakland Raiders. MVP prediction for this game, I am going with Nick Foles. I'm giving Nick Foles his first MVP pick. I think if Philly is going to win this game against the Raiders, it's probably not going to be pretty. I have a gut feeling that our defense is not going to step it up. It's going to be behind the arm of Nick Foles. I'm saying Foles will finish with 3 touchdowns on the day and 300 passing yards. So there you go, guys. That is your quick hype / preview video for the Eagles versus the Raiders on Christmas Day. Let me know what you guys feel about this game. Are you hype or not? Yeah or nah? Hopefully we can get that home field advantage. And that does it for me here today, guys. Thank you for watching. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.